I'm sorry, but the American dream never fucking existed. Like, what? Your dream is to work until you are 65 and decrepit and not be able to make ends meet the entire time? Like, I'm sorry, but that just does not sound remotely appealing to me.
Listen, if you still want to come to America because you believe in the American dream, let me tell you something. That dream died like 30 plus years ago, and now we're living in a dream that involves paying $10 for a dozen of shitty fuck eggs, paying $2,000 a month for an apartment in the ghetto that's about 700 square feet and it has no walls. And
now what we're seeing is there's dual income houses, right? Most houses now have both spouses working, and the retirement age just keeps going up and savings aren't going up.
According to a new study, it takes a whopping $3.4 million of lifetime earnings to afford the American dream, when the average American only earns anywhere from $1.7 to $2.3 million over a lifetime, leaving over $1 million gap. It's a shame.
For decades, people around the world have looked at America as the land of opportunities, the place where hard work supposedly pays off. But now, Americans themselves are speaking up, saying life has become too difficult. Groceries eat up to 20% of their paycheck. Rent is outrageously expensive, and even with 2 or 3 jobs, many people still struggle to afford the basics. So what's really going on? Is the American dream dead? And if so, what killed it?
Please stay for this, because I've reached the part in this whole class consciousness part where I'm just filled with the most impotent rage and I'm talking that white hot, I need to sink my teeth into something and scream kind of rage. Because what do you mean that it never had to be this hard for us? What do you mean in other countries they don't have to spend 20% of their paycheck on groceries? What do you mean in other countries everyone can own homes because they're not paying $2,000 a month in rent, or that their mortgages aren't their entire paycheck? What do you mean that people in China work one job and they don't even work 40 hours and they can easily afford their life? And then I'm over here working 60 hours a week, just me as a single parent, to barely make ends meet, and I'm penny pinching every single second, and there's so much of life that my kid misses out on and that I miss out on because of money and work and no social support net. And you mean to tell me that it didn't have to be like this? They keep us in these chains on purpose, and it never had to be like this. I did everything right. I went to college. I had to drop out of college to take care of my mom when she was sick because, again, no social services, no safety nets. My dad worked his whole life and died and left everything to my mom. My mom was disabled and she lived on credit, and she barely made ends meet, and she did everything she was supposed to. And I did everything I was supposed to, and it just keeps getting worse. It was never supposed to be like this. And I'm so angry that it is. Because what do you mean? I've spent so much of my life working so hard to scrape by, and it never had to be like that. My suffering was at the expense of someone else becoming wealthy because they could. And I am so angry about this. It can't stay like this. It doesn't have to stay like this.
And then if you want to go to university here, you're looking at around $100,000 for a 4-year education. That's on the low end. But in those 4 years, you might get shot because everyone seems to want to shoot each other for some ungodly reason. Then you're going to graduate thinking, oh, I graduated, I have a degree now, I'm going to get a good job. Your good job is going to pay you about $40,000 starting off, maybe. And then they're going to say you're going to work 40 hours a week. When in reality, you're going to be working about 50 plus hours a week because they're going to guilt trip you in by saying, we're a family, we're a team, we help each other. And they're not going to pay you overtime for that, because why would they? If they get your help for free, why would they pay you for that? Okay. Then there's no work-life balance. That company you're working for now doesn't want to give you vacation days until like maybe your second year working there. And those vacation days are maybe 4 days out of the whole entire year. That includes holidays. All right. Then if you're sick, too bad, you still have to come to work. Okay. Then if you want to buy groceries, your groceries are going to be your whole entire paycheck, because no one can afford to eat here anymore. Got it? I go to the grocery store for 4 things. It's like $50. I'm just saying it sucks living here. I don't want to live here. I want to leave. So maybe you should rethink your whole American dream, because it's not what it's all cracked up to be. Okay? Okay, love you. Bye.
First, let's talk about the basics: housing, food, and everyday expenses. Well, let's start with housing crisis. Rent in major cities like New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco has become completely unaffordable for the average person. Even in smaller towns, the prices are skyrocketing. Imagine working full-time, sometime even overtime, and still struggling to afford a one-bedroom apartment. People used to dream about buying a house in America. Now, home ownership feels impossible. Mortgage rates are at all-time high, and wages haven't increased to match the inflation. Many people are stuck in a cycle of renting, unable to save enough for a down payment because most of their income goes to survival. Food prices are out of control. Americans are now saying that groceries take up to 20% of their paycheck. That's insane. Just a few years ago, food was expensive, but people could still budget and get by. Now it feels like no matter how much they try to cut costs, essential like eggs, milk, and bread keep getting more expensive. Compare this to other countries where people can afford to eat without feeling like they're making a financial sacrifice. In some places, food prices are stable, and a single job is enough to provide for a household. In America, people are forced to use credit just to buy groceries.
Let's take a firefighter, for example. In 2011, they made $45,000 a year on average. Now the average salary for a firefighter is $53,000 in California, which, let's be real, in California, that's not gonna go very far. So that is a 17% increase, which sounds pretty good, but when you look at the inflated costs of everything in the past 13 years, it's really bad. The buying power has gone down dramatically. Housing is just one example. If you wanna buy a house, this is $1.3 million today. 10 years ago, this house was valued at $670,000, so it has doubled in 10 years. In 2024, I think the only way to have a shot at achieving the American dream is owning your own business, or we are also seeing a lot of people leave the US and achieve it elsewhere.
My idea of the American dream is to be able to afford things on an average salary with one income in the household, and be able to save money while you're paying for everything else, to be able to retire at an age that's reasonable so you can enjoy the rest of your life without having to, work 40 hours a week when you're over 60 years old. I think that's ridiculous. Now, what we're seeing is there's dual income houses, right? Most houses now have both spouses working, and the retirement age just keeps going up. Now the average home price is over $400,000. And that is insane to me, because the wages have not increased with the cost increase. So the American dream now is you work, your partner works, and you retire over the age of 70. Great dream. Live the dream.
It's a shame that what this country once stood for is becoming harder and harder to achieve for the average American. And you and I both know why that's happening. Housing unaffordability is through the roof, and prices of everything have skyrocketed when wages have not kept up. Now, I want to hear your number. Is it more or is it less? I think for most people, $3.4 million is probably right on the mark when you include that house, when you include kids, when you include cars, and when you include health insurance, which is a damn shame. And the only way that this is going to change is if wages catch up and outpace inflation for a significant amount of time. And I have no idea if that's going to happen in the current economic climate.
Let's not even get started on utilities and healthcare. Americans have to worry about high electricity bills, water bills, car insurance, and on top of that, medical expenses. One trip to the hospital can wipe out an entire family's saving. Meanwhile, countries with universal healthcare don't have this problem. So when people say life in America is hard, they are not exaggerating. The basics, food, shelter, healthcare, have become a daily struggle. Now, let's talk about another major issue: work culture in America. People in America don't have lives. They wake up, go to work, come home exhausted, sleep, and repeat. They have multiple jobs just to survive. It's crazy that so many Americans are working 2 to 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And even then, some of them still can't afford to pay rent or even save for the future. That's not living, that's surviving. Compare that to other countries like China, where people work one job and can still afford to have a decent life. Even in European countries, workers get paid vacations, maternity leave, and better job security. In America, if you take few days off, you risk getting fired. There's no work-life balance in America. American parents barely see their kids because they're always working. People don't have time for hobbies, socialization, or even relaxing because they're always stuck in the endless cycle of work and bills. Think about that. What kind of life is it when you never get to enjoy your family or your personal time? Other countries prioritize work-life balance. In places like France, employees are legally protected from answering work emails after hours. In some Asian countries, people can take naps at work because rest is valued. In America, if you even think about resting, you are labeled lazy. For years, people are sold the idea that America was the place where hard work would lead to success. But now, Americans themselves are questioning whether that was ever true. There was a time when people could go to college, get a good job, buy a home, and retire comfortably. But that time is gone. Wages have not increased to match the inflation. College degrees don't guarantee good jobs anymore. The cost of living keeps rising while paychecks stays the same. The dream that if you just work hard, you'll succeed is now seen as a lie. People are working harder than ever but getting nowhere. Americans are drowning in debt. Many people live paycheck to paycheck and rely on credit cards just to cover their daily expenses. And guess what? Banks love it. They profit off high interest rates while people struggle to stay afloat. Student loans, car loans, mortgages, everything is designed to keep people in debt. It's like the entire system is set up to make sure Americans never truly own anything. If you think working people have it hard, imagine how bad it is for those who can't work. People like disabled Americans are really struggling. The government does not provide enough support for people with disabilities. Many of them rely on disability benefits, but the amount they receive is barely enough to survive. Medical expenses are overwhelming. Disability-friendly jobs are hard to find. Many disabled people live in poverty despite needing extra care. Even the elderly are being left behind. Retirement in America is a joke. People work their entire lives thinking they'll retire comfortably, only to find out they still have to work in their 60s and 70s just to survive. In some countries, retirees get pensions and can live comfortably. But in America, elderly people are barging groceries or working as Uber drivers because Social Security isn't enough. What kind of system forces people to work until they die? Americans are finally waking up and realizing that they've been lied to. People are exhausted. They're tired of struggling just to survive. They see other countries where people work less but live better. And now, some are even thinking of leaving America to find a better life elsewhere. More Americans are looking at countries where healthcare is free or affordable, work-life balance is respected, housing is not insanely expensive. Some are even moving to places like Mexico, Thailand, or Portugal because life is cheaper and less stressful there. It's sad to see people leaving their home country just to have a better life. So, after looking at all this, what do you think? Is the American dream really dead, or was it never real to begin with? Personally, I think America is no longer the dream destination it once was. The work culture, cost of living, and constant struggling make it hard for people to actually live. And when people are working multiple jobs just to survive, that's a sign that something is very wrong. But I want to hear from you. Do you think the American dream is still alive? Would you move to another country if you had the chance? What needs to change to make life in America better? Well, drop your thoughts in the comment section and also remember to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.